What's up, ego hackers? Welcome to the C.S. Joseph podcast. I'm your host, C.S. Joseph. Today's question: where can I go to meet people with compatible octagrams? What a question. An extremely complex question, and I love me complex questions. So special thanks to the Acolyte member who submitted this question for us this month. It's really great to have, and I would love me some octagram questions. For those of you that don't really know or are already know, Octagram represents the ego hacker community's version of the Enneagram. The Enneagram, I found, is inaccurate and mixes nature with nurture, whereas Octagram is just pure nurture and combines really well with the type grid, which is all about our nature. And it represents the feedback of the input process output feedback loop for humanity. The output is our nature. The feedback is ultimately our nurture. If you want to learn more about that, there's an input process output feedback episode in season 18, Cognitive Mechanics. Season 18 is our private season, although we release one episode of it a month on YouTube and on the podcast as we add episodes behind the paywall. And there's like over a year's worth of content within Season 18 Cognitive Mechanics. If you want to check that out, csjoseph.life/members, become a journeyman member, and you can log in to watch it at csjoseph.life/portal. So, where can you go to meet compatible octagrams? Compatible octagrams really actually matter. Compatible nurture actually matters. For example, one of the ways that you can determine compatibility with Octagram, it's a really basic system, but I actually go in deeper in the cutting edge and also on Season 18 Cognitive Mechanics behind the paywall. But to get in deeper with it, or actually no, just a basic understanding. Let's just give you the basic understanding. But to go in deeper, obviously be a journeyman member, but the basic understanding, it comes down to cognitive origin. Cognitive origin is the thing that someone is looking for out of life more than anything. So there's 8 cognitive origins. In the soul temple, it's justification and also intimacy and connection or intimacy. In the heart temple, it's reverence, known as deep respect, or satisfaction, also known as contentment. In the mind temple, it's all about validation, receiving validation, and then also cigar is almost it's about to go. So thank you for your patience with me. It's very strong. This is probably one of the strongest cigars I have ever smoked. I was not expecting it to be this strong. Holy smokes. So yeah, but the bottom line is, for the mind temple, they want them some validation. They also want some power and authority, right? Authority is another origin. And then for the body temple, it is purpose and it is discovery. These 8 things are ultimately what people are looking for the most in their lives, but depending on what your type is, one of them ultimately dominates your life. And for me, that's satisfaction, also known as contentment, right? However, your octagram ultimately determines how you go about doing that. Your nurture determines ultimately how you actually gain your cognitive origin. And that's important. That's very important. It's everything. It's absolutely everything. You do this by understanding what your temple wheel is. And to learn more about temple wheels, you want to look up the 8 temple wheels of the Octagram. That is the name of the specific article, and that's available at csjoseph.life, and I think it's csjoseph.life/blog. Read about the temple wheels there, and you start to understand shadow pull, aspiration pull, deadly sin, living virtue, as the different ways of expression that a person has with their nurture for them to actually get what they're looking for out of life, which is their cognitive origin. What's also really great about cognitive origin is that it never actually changes. And you can actually type people based off of cognitive origin, which is great, because it's the one thing in 4 sides dynamics, it's the one thing in Jungian analytical psychology that doesn't change per person. It's always there. But there are 4 different interpretations or 4 different expressions of a person's octagram. And as we have mentioned before, that's SDSF, which is subconscious developed, subconscious focused. SDUF, which is subconscious developed, unconscious focused, UDSF, which is unconscious developed, subconscious focus, and UDUF, which is unconscious developed, unconscious focused, right? And each of them have different ways of going about their cognitive origin. SDSF people, they're looking for 3x or 3 times their like 3 helpings. They really want their main cognitive origin, right? Because they've been enabled to do so in their life. SDUF types want 2 parts of their main cognitive origin and 1 part of their secondary cognitive origin. Same thing also goes with UDSF types. UDSF types also want 2 parts of their main cognitive origin and 1 part of their secondary cognitive origin. Again, SDSF types, they want 3 parts of their main cognitive origin, and they don't really care that much about their secondary cognitive origin. And unconscious developed, unconscious focus types, UDUFs like myself, we actually want 2 parts of our secondary cognitive origin and 1 part of our primary cognitive origin, although that cognitive origin is still primary. Remember, UDUF types basically are they're not really permanent. It's not a permanent state of being. It's not really where you want to be mostly in your life ultimately, because you want to work hard at developing your subconscious still, so you can get back to being UDSF, so you can have more hope in your life, because being UDUF means it's related to despair ultimately. So those are the 4 different octagrams. Now, how do you determine compatibility between those octagrams? It really comes down to cognitive origin, right? So if you're in a relationship with like a golden pair, I'm UDUF ENTP, so I would be best suited for an INTJ because they're my golden pair from a nature perspective. However, from an octagram perspective, having the same octagram is important because while they're looking for their primary origin, they're not competing for my primary origin. Or if I'm looking for my secondary origin and they're looking for their secondary origin, we're not competing for our primary origins or our secondary origins. There's just no competition. So compatibility is based on reduction of competition for gaining your cognitive origin, especially in terms of sexual relationships, right? But every single one of our human interactions is dominated this way. Not only that, if you get with your natural pair, the rules change a little bit. You want to be with your octagram that is the opposite of your octagram, because their nurture is able to serve up the cognitive origins you're looking for, and your nurture, your octagram, is able to serve up the cognitive origins that they're looking for. So it's always a fair exchange, right? And again, there is no competition for those cognitive origins. That's literally how that works, okay? It's a really big deal. So that's important. And everything matters from that perspective. It absolutely does. That's how compatibility basically between octagram is determined. Now again, in terms of sexual relationships, there are 8 sexual relationships. There are the 4 long-term relationships, and there are the 4 short-term relationships, psychologically speaking, okay? And the long-term relationships are basically the affection relationship, which is your golden pair. Then you have the respect relationship, which is your silver pair. You have your natural pair, which is your bronze pair. And then you have your super ego, which is known as the challenge relationship, the challenging relationship. And those are the long-term relationships. Short-term relationships are the pedagogue relationship, although many people do have long-term relationships in a pedagogue relationship. And then also the intrigue relationship. That's also a short-term relationship. And then the trust relationship, also known as the benefactor relationship. And then the kindred relationship, right, where it's basically an exchange of kindness, etc. And that's the lowest compatibility out of the 8 sexually compatible relationships. And usually kindred is based on a trauma bond, typically. So, and each of these 8 different sexual relationships are serving up and producing and consuming cognitive origins in different ways. And if you want to understand production and consumption of cognitive origins, I highly recommend you get the Ego Hacking by Text course and the masterclass. You get that at egohackingbytext.com. Sign up for the course, get the course, and then upgrade to the masterclass so you can actually learn about something known as the Rosetta Stone. The Rosetta Stone basically places all of the cognitive functions and shows you which function is consuming and producing each of the cognitive origins for each of the 16 types. And we also go through each of the love languages, because the 8 love languages are actually based on production and consumption of cognitive origins within each of your guys' relationships. That's how it works, and that's why it matters, right? It matters entirely, right? Get educated. Because if you want to actually have the best compatible relationships, especially from an octagram, from a human nurture perspective, you really need to understand how the Rosetta Stone works and how love languages are basically consumed and produced by each of the 16 types. For example, my love language is acts of service. I consume acts of service, but when I go into my subconscious, I also produce acts of service. And then obviously you need to learn the concept of soft locking, which is ultimately the driver behind what forms a person's octagram over time. Soft locking is a concept that is heavily discussed behind the paywall in the Journeyman membership in the Cutting Edge episode, and I believe it's December 2022, where soft locking is discussed at length. And that is a prerequisite for the Ego Hacking by Text course, as well as the Ego Hacking by Text masterclass. If you happen to already own the course, you can get the masterclass by going to offers.csjoseph.life/EBT-masterclass. So, once you have all this knowledge, and you actually can understand how you might be compatible, naturally people would have the question, okay, hey, how do I actually find people that are compatible with me from a neutral perspective? And the short answer, I got a short answer and a long answer. I'm going to provide both within this video, but the short answer is you can't. You can't. You can't plan that out. And if you're like an INTJ who's asking this question and likes to, because NI Hero is all about the outcome and trying to plan every little detail about everything in life. These are the people who, for example, who think a lot more about sex instead of actually having sex, for example. And they never actually get out there and never actually experience the world and just let things naturally happen. Because the reality of the situation is that your octagram is the way that it is, and you will naturally attract people that are compatible with your octagram, that are compatible with your nurture. You will naturally attract those people. So, but you won't be able to realize that until you actually get out in the world and actually do it. You actually have to do it. And oftentimes people don't even know that that's an option. They just don't know. They don't know that that's a thing, right? So get out there and go meet people. So the long answer is some specific strategies you can do. There is one overarching principle that you can always bank on when it comes to finding people with compatible octagrams. It's called the shared interest principle, okay? So you want to go be around people who have the same interests as you. What's the best place to do that? Meetup.com. Go to meetup.com and go put in your zip code and find meetup groups where people are meeting in person, not just online, but in person. Go find these people, all right? And once you've found these people, you're participating in these groups just because they have the same interests you have. Technically, you will meet people who have compatible nurturers with you, compatible octagrams with you. And Meetup is just one example. But again, if you go do something where other people are doing it with you, maybe you're volunteering, maybe you're at church, maybe you're doing some kind of community event, maybe you're at a party. But regardless, as long as there's a shared interest of some kind, right? Or when you're talking to strangers like I do, because that's like my favorite hobby, is actually going up to people and talking to strangers. It's like my favorite thing to do. Eventually, you'll put out your interests in conversation, and you'll see if they share those interests. And if they do share those interests, naturally, you'll get to a point where, you'll realize that they have a compatible nurture with you. And then perhaps you are able to serve up their cognitive origins to them, or they're able to serve up your cognitive origins to your primary and secondary origin. And it becomes this awesome exchange, right? That's literally how it works. You just have to position yourself for greatness by actually going and participating in the situations. Even if you're an introvert, go and participate. Besides, as an introvert, you benefit by extroverting and being drained of your energy, because then you'll actually get sleep for once. And this is especially important for INJ types. Really, really important for INJs to learn and actually do and actually participate. Because without doing that, well, they're going to have a really lame, boring life that lacks substance entirely. Don't let that be you. You don't want to be that guy. So make sure you're understanding that appropriately. Oh, my beanie's like really itchy right now. So probably because the temperature went up. It usually happens when the temperature goes up. So, but yeah, make sure that you guys are going out there and meeting new people, because that's really the only way. Unless, of course, you get really good at typing people by their Octagram, but you'd have to actually master the Octagrid. Which, don't worry, we're going to be releasing a course very soon called How to Type Yourself Octagram Edition. We're also going to be releasing a free course for how to type yourself in terms of being able to use the type grid and educating people on how to type people using the type grid. And that'll be a free course available to everyone within the Ego Hacker community. But we have this paid course that's going to be How to Type Yourself Octagram Edition, right? And that's going to be really key. That's going to be a very, very big deal, right? And then as a result of that, you'll be able to, get and use some of my techniques that I use on the street or anywhere in my life, where you actually get to learn about how to identify somebody else's Octagram. And then once you know their Octagram, automatically you know their type already, because you would have to know their type to know their Octagram. You already know how compatible you are with them, and you would already be able to see exactly where your nurture fits in with them as to whether or not you want to pursue a friendship or maybe even a sexual relationship with that particular person, or maybe it would help you parent your children better, or facilitate your family, or run your business or your team. All of that actually applies, okay? So, but again, we're getting there. And until that course is available, go to Meetup or go out there and meet people and just get to know people, and then eventually, through getting to know them, their Octagram will eventually become self-evident, and you will see whether or not your origins are being provided to you or you're providing your origins to them. Or if you're being drained, you're providing your origins to them, but they're not providing them back to you, and then maybe that should not be somebody you should be investing in, etc. So that's basically how it works. Otherwise, unless you're properly educated on how Octagram works, you're not really going to know. You're just not really going to know. So you got to get out there. You got to get life experience. You have to socialize, because socialization is the only way that's going to work. So anyway, folks, thanks for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.